I've been playing piano for a very long time, and anyone who's been playing an instrument for a long time, especially anyone who improvises on that instrument, gets to know certain things about the instrument and the way they play it. And I have a sort of default style as a pianist, and it's very hard to get away from it. I don't think I have sufficient technique as a pianist to get away from the things that are most comfortable for me. And so when I started writing this show, which I knew had to have a very different voice than something like the last 5 years, I was puzzled about what I could do to access that voice, because I was afraid that if I wrote it all on piano, it would sound very much like the rest of the stuff that I write. And so I picked up a guitar, which I don't play very well at all. I sort of play the way some schmuck in high school plays a guitar. But I picked it up and decided to see what would come out. And because my technique is so limited on the guitar, I was forced to sort of come up with different ways of playing it and all sorts of different tunings and anything I could do to give it a little bit of variety, because otherwise I only know 3 chords. And so as I was coming up with these new ways of playing an instrument I didn't know how to play, and these new ways of finding music, I think a lot of really wonderful sounds came out of it. And for Robert specifically, I felt like that sound, not just the acoustic guitar, but the questing Joni Mitchell and Paul Simon and James Taylor style that was coming out of me, I think that was so essential to defining who Robert was. And I don't think I would have come up with those sounds on the piano. So, who we are and who we meant to be is very much I think of it as a Jimmy Webb song. It's sort of something Glenn Campbell would have sung. And I felt like that was where he was in that moment. He was the Wichita lineman. And so much of Robert's stuff is meant to prefigure the singer-songwriters of the 70s who were such a big influence on me and who really I've never been able to appropriately pay tribute to until I put a guitar in my hands.
My technique in singing from a woman named Florence Birdwell was called speaking on pitch, and you never were to use your voice as an instrument solely. And so singing Oz had to have meaning. Obligatos, melismas, things in arias, places in arias where you're just repeating a thought, whatever you're doing on a vowel, everything had to have a story, a meaning. So I would try to, and the minute you start getting all bel canto and think oh, my voice is so beautiful, and you're just listening to yourself as an instrument, is the minute you start to lose what you're doing. And believe me, there are certain shows when I could have done that, and there were. But if you're connected to something, connected to a thought, and why there are more than one of those particular phrases, gets bigger, every one of them had to have a thought and a reason. And if I was clued in, it would always go better. And so I believe very much in that. So it is an instrument, but it has a brain that can have thought and purpose.
It felt very natural to me that Francesca should not always be verbal, that there are things that can be expressed, simply with a musical phrase that words might get in the way of. Words might simplify the emotional life of a musical phrase. And so it was important to me that there be moments, not just for Francesca, but for the choir also, where they get to sing, where they bring their voices, they bring their bodies to the music, but without attaching text to it. But I was nervous about doing it because there's a lot of that, and I think it comes from the exact same impulse in Light in the Piazza, which of course Kelli already did and did so magnificently. And so I was nervous initially that I was going to get tagged as ripping off Adam's stuff, and incidentally, if I was going to rip off anybody's, why not rip off Adam's? But I got nervous about that, and then I really just thought, well, the hell with it. It's what it has to be. This is the purest expression of what this character feels, and I don't want to be afraid of expressing it just on the basis of some catty bitch on the internet. I want to let that expression find its full flower, And there's something about the build at the end of who we are and who we want to be. Once Kelli starts singing the Oz, and then Robert joins her, and then the whole chorus joins in with them, and that they are all expressing what is verbally inexpressible, but which is so clear to the audience exactly what they mean. And it was such a magical moment for me as a writer to discover that. So I'm grateful I just pushed through my fears about how to deal with that.
I'm actually grateful to you as well, because it's actually a very selfless and creative thing that a writer can do, because you give us the boundaries with your lyrics and with your melodies the entire show. Giving us one spot of clear, unlyriced music is actually our one point to take everything you've given us and go with our own imaginations. And so what happens there is you had every single person in the cast using their emotion and their build-up without any guidelines. So it actually comes out, if you do that at least once, and no more than too many times, you get that full emotional impact.
I mean, a great singing actor is always doing both. A great singer is not necessarily a great actor, and God knows the opposite is also true, but a great singing actor cannot sing without filling that sound with story, without filling that sound with some emotion. I remember somebody telling me once that what made you a real musician is if you couldn't make a black circle on a page without thinking how it sounded. And I understand what that means. And I think in the same way, what makes you a true singing actor is you cannot let a sound escape from your mouth on stage without knowing how it connects to the story you're telling.